Hi, my name's Anthony Burke. I'm a Professor of Architecture from the University of Technology, Sydney, in Sydney, Australia. The experience of the whole trek, the whole Manaslu Circuit, was one of real achievement. It's not an easy trek to do, and I felt as one of my first more extreme sorts of walks and hikes that it really challenged me at a number of levels. It was very cold near the top. We had to get used to altitude, and there was some conditions which were pretty tough. We had some long walking days, for example. But all of that made the success of coming over Laki Pass absolutely worth every minute of it all. And it exceeded my expectations in that sense, because the scenery and the environment there is so profoundly beautiful. To be able to be in that space and feel like you're achieving a personal goal as well as experiencing this wonderful environment is something that is absolutely so special. So for me, the highlights were that sense of achieving the goal, going over the pass. I think the fact that it was quite hard at points. It got very cold in a few moments. The accommodation, for example, is not luxurious. It's very basic in some places. So one has to be prepared for all of that. And I hadn't really, I guess, formed a picture of what the trek would be like on a day-to-day level. And so going through the trek, each day was a new experience, a new picture. And I feel like each day we moved through a new scenery and a new environment. So the trek itself unfolded like a film. But as I said, I think the real highlight was just that fact that we were able to take all of that beautiful scenery in, and it propelled us to get to Laki Pass and then drop down the other side, and that pass was a real moment. The organisation and the planning were, they were second to none. It's very remote where we're walking, and the villages that we're walking through are not very well equipped. So you really need someone with experience who knows how to navigate those spaces. I felt that the organisation before the trip was very low maintenance. It was very clear what was required from me, and it was very clear then what the trip would demand of me.
Okay.
So that was very well explained, I think. The itinerary and so on, very well put together. But most important was during the walk with our guide Sitaram, who was fantastic. His experience and his calm maturity, I suppose, walking into all of those situations, you felt like you would walk into a scenario where everything was well organized, but if anything went wrong, it was taken care of. And I think that gave me a confidence, because there are some moments on the hike where a long day of walking, or very maybe some precarious or more dangerous parts of the trail. You want someone there who knows what to do if things go wrong, and I felt that we had that. Our trekking guide Sitaram was it was fantastic. We had a great conversation going the whole trip. A very easy conversation. It wasn't forced, and it wasn't unnecessary. It was just a very natural kind of friendship actually that evolved through the trip. He was informative when I had a question, and I'm a professor, so I had lots of questions about the architecture, the villages, the mountains. What peak is that? How cold will it be? Sitaram always had a way to understand not just the answer to the question, but the context that we were operating within. So I think that was really wonderful to see. Also, I just felt like there was, again, a maturity with the whole organization of things. As we came into a camp, as we came into a town, things would be ready for us. And there's an experience there which there were some other less experienced guides that were working with other trekkers at the same time, and we could see the difference. I mean, to give you an example, after dinner every evening, we ended up playing cards with our guides and with our porter, and that was great fun. And it was a really beautiful bonding kind of thing. So we got very close. I think the unexpected challenges were just how physically demanding the walk actually is. It's very easy to imagine a beautiful walk in a lovely context, but we were walking some days 8 to 10 hours, and the walks were gaining elevation on the way up in quite steep sections. The cold at the top, when we got to near the Laki Pass, was quite. It was more than I was ready for, I suppose. I mean, we managed it, handled it. I had the right equipment, but it was to experience it was something. So that was a challenge that had to be managed. We engaged with the local culture to some degree, certainly loads of questions about what we were seeing as we would move through the villages. We would always stop at very small tea houses for our lunches and for our dinners at the lodges or the tea houses where we stayed. There was always some interaction. I think the most important thing was when we had questions about what we were looking at, Sitaram always had a good explanation of the whole cultural context. I think Himalayan Magic Trek has exceeded my expectations in the sense that the organization is absolutely there. It has been seamless, but it has also been unfussy. So in that sense, everything we needed was there when it needed to be there. It wasn't a fuss, it wasn't a big drama, and there wasn't a lot of backwards and forwards. I think the experience of the company really is speaking loudly in that context. I felt like I was very well handled and very well looked after for the whole trip. And again, we were in some pretty challenging contexts. And to be in those scenarios and to have someone who always has your back and is taking care of you, that's a very reassuring thing. So I really recommend Himalayan Magic Treks.